Hello, everybody. It's great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD, Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio and family office located in Palo Alto, California, and Palm Beach, Florida. We believe at GSD that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that co-founded with Dr. David Yang. We believe at GSD that intellectual capacity is evenly spread, but opportunities are not. And with that, we have an incredible guest today, Noah Palansky. We're going to talk about his Taiv, a Y Combinator-backed company that's transforming live TV inside restaurants and sports bars. He makes out-of-home television more effective and trackable, a game changer for advertisers and venues alike. His team's recently raised $14 million Series A, and their technology is already powering screens across North America, from sports bars during NFL kickoffs to everyday restaurants. He's proving that in-venue advertising can be measurable and impactful as digital. We will go down through and explore his journey, what it's like to be a Y Combinator company. But let's talk a little bit about his background. So with that, I'd like to bring him on board. Hi, Noah. So how is it? You're in Winnipeg. It's I've been to Canada many times, but it's not known as a place. It's not like the Silicon Mountains or whatever. How did you get started up there? I know you have a computer science background, but how did you get started up there? And how did you go down through and leverage being in Canada to raise $14 million?
Yeah, and thanks for having me, Gary. Excited to be on the show. It's interesting. So I completely agree with your statement that opportunities and talent are kind of evenly distributed, but maybe access to network and access to capital aren't. And so it can create these really interesting effects in ecosystems like Winnipeg, where there is not much of a startup scene, where you have great, talented people, you have entrepreneurs with good ideas, and there's just no tribal knowledge of how you actually do things, how you go about raising money, how you build a company and eventually sell a company, and that creates a disconnect. And so I actually see that as one of our biggest competitive advantages, is that we're building where other people aren't. And so we're able to attract great talent. We get some of the best engineering and sales talent in the city, at a very reasonable price, because there aren't other startups and aren't other opportunities like this competing for it. But then we can take that, build world-class product, and actually go and raise money and sell to customers across the US. That's kind of been our strategy from day one.
So I've been, I started one of the first e-commerce consulting companies, and I started in the UK. And in fact, I was living close to Kensington Palace, and I tried raising money there. And I spent about 4 months trying to raise money, and I couldn't do it. And I came back over to the US, and we raised $6 million in short order. And this was many years ago. And so, part of the thing is, people forget there's really three pillars: operational expertise, which you talked about, access to capital, and network and contacts. And if you have those three in a resilient team, any company can be pivoted to become a unicorn. The other secret is that most people don't realize behind the VCs are high net worth individuals and family offices. So we work a lot with family offices. I'm down in Palm Beach, actually, at my house at the Polo Club here right now. And when you're dealing with those families, they have 99% of the wealth in the world, like literally. And most people don't get it. Behind the scene, they're there. And one conversation with somebody, a friend, that to do something changes everything. So, I like, you're right on target with it. When I was in Moscow, we brought Guy Kawasaki and worked with Bob Dorff and Steve Blank and people like that we've known for the Valley for years. But having those connections is critically important, because on the other side of it, they become your greatest cheerleaders.
Absolutely. And I think the thing people don't realize is that you don't have to have those connections going in. You just need to win one person over. All you need to do is get in the room with anybody who has those connections, whether they're another founder, an angel investor, a family office, a VC, it doesn't matter. And you have to make them want you to win. And then they'll put their reputation on the line. They'll put you in front of more people, and your network grows and it snowballs from there. And I think that I would challenge people that pretty much any person can get in front of one or two, people who have a network that they want to tap into. And then the challenge is on them to actually win them over.
Well, it's, there's one thing that happens once you're inside of it. in Silicon Valley, especially, most people forget that Silicon Valley still has half the money in the world, right? And so it's a port where people come and people go, where investors come in and go out of. And I was talking to one of the wealthiest families from Germany, and they developed a new tech. I'm not going to tell you the technology because you'll instantly identify who the family is. But one of the wealthiest families, a family's worth about $100 billion. Anyhow, he called me up and he said, listen, this product is in line with what their family's building, but they wanted help bringing it over to the U.S. to Silicon Valley because they needed the connections. Now, this is a family, that, it's a household name. It's crazy. And so you go down through and do it. It's interesting because most people never connect the dots. They don't, there's places like Nigeria, which got almost 300 million people, and some of the most interesting AI startups in the world that nobody goes to, right? There's 54 countries in Africa, 1.1 billion plus people, and people don't go. There's folks in Canada, all over Canada. There's incredible opportunities there, but nobody really connects the dots. But the problem is, nobody's really done it in a laser precise way. You've done it, but not many people do. There's a reason 9 out of 10 companies fail. The other thing is the average VCs between 24 and 34, they've never built a company. Only 10% are operators. So they're trying to tell you stuff they have no idea what to do. Most of them, right? And so they care about the 2 and 20. So and you've been an investor. It's a bunch of BS. And you got to get out there. The people that have done it from the ground up, and pulled their boots up, it works. But it ain't easy, and it never is. And this problem's not just, we have the same problem in Silicon Valley. So I have companies that have come from places like Stanford, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, MIT, doctors from Yale, medical doctors, MBAs. Same problem. You go to one of those, name brand schools, but that doesn't mean you have all the connections. You have a good starting point because you have the .eu email address, but they don't know how to connect the dots. The other thing is, you get into a funnel when you're building a company because you're so damn busy trying to stay alive that you don't have time to work the contacts and connections. I remember when Guy Kawasaki joined Canva as a chief evangelist. I literally remember because I had a direct conversation with him about it. And, all of a sudden, Canva is a superstar, right? It's amazing. You studied computer science and business at the University of Manitoba with distinction. How did the blend of technical and business training prepare you for building your company?
Yeah, I've always had this belief that the best operators understand both how to build product and understand the market they're building for. And I've held that belief as long as I can remember. And so originally I went to school in marketing. I dropped out actually when I got a job, and I worked up to be head of marketing at a local startup. And I loved it and really fell in love with this idea of marketing and how, if you have a really powerful message and you have the right megaphone, you can change the way people think. And I think that's something fundamentally that we all believe in. Even the function of this podcast is just the right megaphone, and then you put an interesting message behind it and hopefully change some minds and change some behaviors. And so I kind of became obsessed with this problem of how do you build a better megaphone? How do you make it easier for the right people to get the right message in front of the right people? And that took me down the path that became Taiv. And it felt important that before starting this company, I understood the technical end of it too. And I think that's where a lot of founders maybe struggle, is that they understand the business case, but they don't understand the product life cycle. They don't understand how you actually bring a product to market. They don't understand the intricacies of technology. And, when push comes to shove, they can't actually write the code to develop it. And so they're either outsourcing it or bringing on somebody to do it. But I've just kind of always held this belief that if you look at the best and most successful founders, something that the vast majority have in common is that they can at least understand how to write code. They're maybe not the world's best developers, and I definitely don't think I am, but they can write code and they understand what it takes to build a good product. And so that was important to me. So I went back to school, got most of a computer science degree. I actually dropped out a second time when I got into YC, but I did end up finishing it up remotely eventually, and it's been very helpful.
So, I have a multi-agent large language model that I built about 3 years ago, and it actually listens to all the conversations we're having right now. And so it's actually going down through, it's a multi-agent model that actually can build prompts, by the way. It's quite cool. Interesting. But it just came back. It's kind of like my grandmother. I'm a clinical psychologist too, and I put empathy and compassion in the model. So I know a little bit about it too. I'm not nearly as good as you by far, but I know a tiny bit. But it just said to me, for those new to Taiv, how would you describe what you do in one sentence?
Yeah, it's interesting. We make the TV commercials in businesses more relevant, more targeted, more interesting, more valuable.
And so it's asking me now, it says, okay. And then it says the idea of making live out of home TV more targeted and trackable is fascinating. What gap in the market did you see that others were missing?
Yeah, I think the key insight came from looking at how we've kind of moved into this, like what I'd like to say, marketing 2.0. The same way that like Web 2.0 was kind of interactive, you had this marketing 2.0 where channels started having targeting and started having feedback. So, as an example, we went from radio ads where everybody hears the same ad, there's very little measurement, to Spotify and podcasts. You went from newspaper ads to digital ads, right? You went from TV to connected TV, and you went from classifieds to Google search ads. And in each of those iterations, that was the big improvement, was that suddenly the targeting was one-to-one rather than one-to-many, and the attribution existed. And then we looked at live TV, and especially the live TV in business, and it just felt like it hadn't gone through that transition yet. And I don't think it had, and I still think it is going through it, where every business in a city is going to see the same commercial during a sports game. And for the most part, every household is also going to see the same commercial during that sports game because of the way that cable network infrastructure is wired. And streaming solves for that, but only really solves for that in the household environment. In business, it hasn't really been solved yet. And so we kind of just said, what if we can bring, the targeting and precision of streaming advertising and of digital advertising into these TVs and businesses? And as we explored the problem space, we realized this is big. Like there's, over 1 million businesses that show TV in the US alone. And those can be restaurants and bars, but there are also things like hotels and convenience stores and retailers, gas stations, and all sorts of different businesses that have these live TVs, medical offices. And it just felt like this big opportunity where people were showing third-party branding inside their own business that they had no control over, that often hurts the experience, and they had no opportunity to promote their own stuff. They made no money from showing the ads, and they had no control over what gets shown. We just said, okay, we can do better.
No, that's great. And that now it just said, okay, that's interesting. Now walk us through how the technology actually works and how it integrates in restaurants and bars without disrupting their existing entertainment setup.
Yeah, so what we do is that we build our own hardware, and it sits between a cable box and a TV, and it sits there and it runs a series of AI algorithms that we wrote. Some are these modern LLMs, but a lot of them are actually like core computer vision, all running on the edge, offline in real time. And so we're running about 20 different computer vision algorithms at the same time, processing frame by frame in 4K on this custom hardware. And we're saying, what is this? Is it a commercial? Is it regular content? Is it intermission? If it's content, what is the type of game? What teams are playing? We're learning about what they're showing on that video stream. And then based on that, we're either just passing it through completely unmodified, or we're switching the input and showing a different input. And we're just saying, okay, you know what? We're not going to pass this through because it's a commercial break, and we know that they probably don't want to show that. Let's instead show some targeted advertising design for that environment. Or it's intermission. For that 18-minute chunk, we're going to show trivia, and we're going to show something more relevant. And it's this whole idea of just being able to show the right thing for that right environment. And it goes even beyond just TV commercials. Like we can even allow a restaurant or bar to schedule, hey, my happy hours from 2 to 4 p.m. Monday to Friday. So during those periods, I want every second TV in my establishment to switch over. And instead of showing live TV, I now want to show just my happy hour specials. And we can do that. We automate their entire TV system. We centralize it. We give the head office marketing person the control for the first time ever to actually, decide how these TVs should operate in their business and what should be running on them and how to use them for their best interest.
A lot of startups, struggle with proving ROI early. It's very difficult sometimes to show venues what kind of measurable value that you provide. How do you do that?
Yeah, now we have lots of case studies and lots of examples, but our answer earlier was make it free. So we didn't charge venues anything. We still don't. We give the product away for free. They install it. We install it for them. There's no upfront cost. And, if they don't like it, they can pull it out. And we want to prove our value to them. And we're not going to make like it's an ROI from day one because they're putting nothing in to get it. And so from day one, they're going to get control. They're going to get promoting their own content, and they're going to get a bit of revenue whenever we sell a third-party ad. And if at any point in time they say, hey, you know what, I actually prefer the way this worked without Taiv, then they're welcome to throw us out. But I can tell you, we work with almost 3,000 venues, and our retention rate is more than 99% monthly. And so the vast majority of customers love the product.
So, you raised this $14 million Series A. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But what convinced the investors to invest in live venue advertising? Because, you don't hear much about that. But what convinced them? I know you've done a great job of selling them, but what got them excited about it?
I think it's a combination of the story and the metrics. And I think that's something you hear a lot at Series A, is that it's half story driven, half metrics driven. On the story side, it's a lot of what we've been talking about, right? This idea of what if we could bring TV marketing to the same place as digital? What if an advertiser, for the first time ever, could target, convenience stores that carry my product, run ads right above the payment terminal, and then see in real time how that's actually affecting sales? Am I actually lifting sales? If, an advertiser could say, I want to run during the football game, and I only want to run when the local team is winning, and I only want to run in the second half of the game, right? And we can dynamically let them address that inventory. That just has huge intrinsic value. And then that's kind of the story behind it. But then the metrics are, we work with almost 3,000 locations. We're growing incredibly fast on the venue side. Our retention's nearly 100%. And on the advertiser side, we're working with tons of large Fortune 500 customers, and they're seeing a lot of value, and they're coming back, and they're making referrals, and they're actually seeing this as a valuable and effective ad channel that complements what their existing channels are, but also that they can pull new budget lines into. So I think it's a combination of those two things.
So, one of the challenges with sports is the seasonality of it, driving the viewership. So how does your platform make this valuable year round?
Yeah, it's interesting. So there's always going to be hot seasons and cold seasons for sports, and we're always going to see some seasonality related to that. But our prices tend to reflect that too. So if you want to advertise during the busiest season, you're going to be paying more for that ad space, and it's all driven by market forces. So if it's a less busy time, prices are naturally going to drop. It's all priced on a CPM, so it's all relative to how many people are in that venue. And people still go to these bars and restaurants even if there's not a live sports game on. And so, yes, you're maybe going to have a more captive audience if you're playing during football, but that's also priced in. And outside of bars and restaurants, there's a lot less about seasonality. So when we're talking about convenience stores and gas stations, for example, which are a huge customer base for us, people aren't going there to watch sports. And a lot of the time, we're not even showing sports. We're just showing, ads, maybe trivia, maybe some of our own streaming content that we license. But it's really just for that captive audience to give them something to look at while they're late.
TV advertising has really been a spray and pray approach. And this idea of in-venue targeted advertising can really rival CTV or even digital platforms. Do you believe it can rival it in terms of the effectiveness and precision? It's when you hyper-personalize, absolutely. But how do you beat the big guys?
Yeah, I think it's about complementing them, not necessarily beating them. So if you take something like a Facebook or a Google ad, I think that's, bottom of funnel performance. And we can a lot of time drive more people to that performance channel. And we see that all the time. We will run campaigns where we do an A/B test and we build an audience and we expose them to our ad, and then we retarget them with a Facebook ad. We take an identical audience that wasn't prior exposed to our ad, and we hit that same Facebook ad. And more often than not, we will see a massive improvement in the conversion rate on the group that was exposed to our ad first, because now they're familiar with it. They've seen credibility. They've seen it play in the bar 5 or 6 times. Understand the concept. They're going to convert at a higher rate, and you're going to get a lower blended cost per conversion because you're paying less to get that impression with us than you probably are on Facebook. And so you're driving down your cost per conversion by getting top of funnel touch points and getting other benefits too, like building that brand credibility and reaching people who aren't necessarily online or on Facebook. And so I'd see it more as a compliment, but I do think there's specific products where this is what they need. And so using like a soda or a beer as an example, nobody buys a beer because they saw a Google ad. That's not how you purchase that, right? Nobody searches into Google, gum, and clicks on the top results and buys an ad. And nobody sees a performance ad for a lottery ticket and buys it on their phone. That's not really how those sorts of products are purchased today. And so for anything that's bought in the real world, in a convenience or gas station or bar or restaurant, they need performance channels where you can show an ad at point of purchase and then measure in real time how it actually affects whether or not people are purchasing that product. And that's the gap we're solving, is performance marketing for brands that can't use traditional performance marketing, and then brand marketing and top of funnel for brands that can use traditional performance in order to lower their cost per acquisition.
Can they do beer and hard liquor, can they advertise inside of a bar if the bar is the one actually doing the advertisement? Because I know mass you can't spray and pray, but what are the rules inside of the bar?
Yeah, so they can run that ad. There's a lot of ads we can run that you wouldn't be able to necessarily run on broadcast, because we're not considered broadcast. We're considered closed circuit. We're only within that premise. And for brands who are particularly sensitive to it, we can even target, beyond that. We can say we're only going to play in venues that ID at the door, right? We're only going to, we have demographics info for every venue. Maybe we're only going to play venues that 75 or 90% of people are above 21. Maybe we're only going to play between the hours of 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. And depending on the brand and how sensitive they are to these things and the industry, we can tailor it to exactly what they're comfortable doing. But for a lot of these brands, yeah, it unlocks a channel where they can't run TV ads and they can't run a lot of channels, but with us, they can.
So, sports clearly is a vertical that you're working on, but would seem to me like music and esports and political events are untapped. Have you thought about those?
Yeah, we do lots of work with that. And we do lots of work with general awareness as well. Like, lots of the big telecoms and big banks are customers of ours. It's not just, the absolute performance driven, people who are sold in the venue. Yes, we get great results for them. We get great results for sports books and the people you would assume, but it's really anyone who wants a targeted awareness that's better than spray and pray, which is what traditional TV is. You're showing the same ad to every person watching that football game. And with us, you can be more targeted and more measurable. And, that's actually a pretty low bar if you compare it to the status quo.
So you've been building the company since 2018.
Yeah.
What's one mistake you made early that you would never repeat?
Oh, man, I love that question. I have made so many mistakes, but I think some of the biggest ones are not getting a product into customers' hands soon enough. And I think a lot of founders make that mistake. Like, your goal as a founder is to get something that's just slightly better than what exists today into hands as soon as possible and gather feedback and use that in order to orient what direction you want to build the product in. And I think a lot of people have a vision of what they want to do. And I did too. I had a vision of this product that is largely what we built today. And you think, okay, I can't launch until I have that built out. But it's the opposite. You want to build something that barely functions, that you're even a little bit embarrassed about. You just want to get it in some hands as early as possible, iterate, and get as many iterations in as you can. Because I think that speed of iteration is actually the key to building a successful company. I also don't think we raised money early enough, or we didn't raise enough money early enough. Like, we had a particularly expensive company where we had to develop custom hardware, we had manufacturing, we had logistics. And looking back, I think we could have scaled the business a lot faster if we had more capital.
So, your leadership style, going from a scrappy founder to CEO of a venture-backed company, I mean, there's a lot of requirements, board meetings, a lot of things that happen. How did it change? How did you have to evolve your leadership style over the time?
Yeah, I think I've changed my leadership style some ways, and in others, I've just tried to stay true to who I am and lean on my own strengths. And so, a big thing that I've had to get better at is delegating responsibility, and not just giving away tasks. That's different. Telling somebody, hey, I want you to go do this thing and then report back to me is not delegating. Delegating is when you give up control. And that is really hard for a founder to do. Delegating is bringing somebody in and saying, I trust that you're the right person to run our restaurant sales team. You are going to do a better job than I will. It is 100% your focus. And, win or lose, I will back the decisions you make. This is now your responsibility. And then you trust them and they give you the updates, not you giving them the updates. And getting comfortable with that and then bringing the right people to the table who deserve to have that level of control delegated is just essential, because now we have 60 something employees. We're hiring another 5 or 6 positions now. We only had 30 people at the start of this year. And so that's been a huge ongoing learning, is when you're scaling your team that quickly, how do you not scale your workload proportionally? And it all comes down to delegation.
So Y Combinator was a big part of your journey. What's one piece of advice that Y Combinator gave you that helps you operate today?
Yeah, they've given so much good advice, and I still talk to people from there all the time. But some of the core tenets, I think, are just obsessing over, your product and customer love. Like build something people love is something they say, or build something that people want, and really caring about actually building a valuable product. It's easy, I think, to build something that's okay, and then you throw a lot of sales resources at it and you push it down people's throats.
Mm-hmm.
That breaks down. You can do that. You can probably do that to get to $1 million in annual revenue if you're good at it. At some point, that always breaks down. You start having customer churn. You start having unhappy customers. You lose the ability to retain talent because people don't believe in the vision. And if you look at the best companies, they're always built around a really strong product that people actually want. And if you have a marketplace, you have to do it on both sides, which is even harder. Like for us, we have to do it both for restaurants and for advertisers, and constantly iterating that product in order to get closer to building something people love. And it's interesting. It's something that I think San Francisco and Silicon Valley does very well. But I think the rest of the world doesn't, which is the rest of the world takes a more capitalistic mindset where you say, how can I make money soon? And for some reason, Silicon Valley says, how can I build a really good product? And I think that is one of the key tenets that has made it so successful. Other advice from YC is, to really be focused with your time and to choose what you want to spend your time on and be intentional and not just go with the waves. And so, for example, if you're fundraising, you're fundraising. But if you're not fundraising, don't waste time with investor calls that are going to go nowhere. And that doesn't mean blow people off and don't be respectful. It means either, bump the call until you're fundraising and say, hey, I would love to chat, but now's the right time. Or take that 15, 20-minute meet and greet call, but don't get sucked into follow-ups and next steps, and don't have fundraising materials, and don't go down that whole rabbit hole. I think pitch competitions are another classic example of this, where sometimes they are good and serve a purpose, but a lot of the time people do pitch competitions just to feel like they're doing something and getting the company out there. And largely, you're actually not focusing on what you should be as an early stage founder, which is, building a great product and getting customers.
So if you could wave a magic wand, Noah, and change one thing about the advertising industry today, what would it be?
I think it's already changing in this direction, but the industry has historically been a bit archaic. Like if you've ever watched the show Mad Men, right? It works just like that, where you have, people, you have these big high stakes pitches, and then people are making sometimes emotional decisions based on, what will look the best or what will suit me the best politically. And I think now where the industry is going, which is a very good thing, is it's moving into the direction of what is actually the best thing to do for growing sales and building awareness, and what are my actual objectives by running advertisements, and how can I utilize media in order to achieve that. And the industry is moving in that direction, but it's moving from a bottom up. And so some of the big brands are still being slower to adapt. And I hope to see more and more brands taking that approach of, how can I be very surgical with my targeting? How can I get the right message in front of the right people? How can I measure the results? How can I make sure I'm doing the best possible thing for my client?
So we're coming up to the top of the show. If you want to stay on for a few minutes afterwards, we can talk. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, Noah. I apologize for yesterday. We had some computer issues, but I apologize for that. But I want to say thanks to you for joining this show today and sharing your story from the early sparking of idea to building one of the most innovative companies in out-of-home advertising on the planet Earth. If you want to learn more about the company, Taiv.ai and .tv, and see how they help brands show up where the real action is, check it out. Is there closing thoughts, Noah, and how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, you know what? Thanks for having me. This was really fun, Gary. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, I'm active on LinkedIn. You can also just shoot an email. My email is noah@taiv.tv. I don't hide that from anybody. You can shoot me an email, and all of my customers shoot me emails all the time, and prospective customers and partners do as well. Or we have a contact us form through our website, whatever you'd rather. And I'm always happy to talk about advertising and anything related to it, and just how to utilize some of these newer up and coming channels in order to drive real results, which is, I think, the point.
Yeah, thanks for taking your time. And to all my audience out there, thank you one more time for joining GSG Presents Top Global Startups. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And we'll be back again soon with another exciting edition. Thanks, Noah, and thanks, everybody.